Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so this is going to be continuing from a stream earlier today. So we're going to continue coloring Dreamside. And likely at some point, we're going to have my good friend joining us. And I'm just going to check with her. All right. And I'll give people a little bit of time to filter in here. All right. So, this is going to be fun because I'm still working on these lighting effects, but this is kind of a fun time with the lighting because I start to really make the characters come to life. And I can add a lot of interesting colors and detail the line. Really, this is becoming sort of a polish phase because, I jump around like this when I work on these things too. I have a basic idea of what I need things to turn into if I jump ahead on like one little area. So rather than taking a very organized approach, which would probably be smart, where I do all the steps of one particular process at once, for example, on the right side and on the left side. Instead, sometimes if I feel inspired, I'll just kind of continue moving forward all the way through for one element of the piece. And the reason that I like to do that, one, is that it gives me the freedom to do things the way that I want. I'm not doing something that just kind of becomes repetitive and boring. If I feel like I want to do something that I'm excited about it, I'll jump in and do that. And then the other reason that's useful is that it lets me set a goal for the overall page too. If I do a little bit that is kind of moving toward complete, it helps me set a kind of a visual standard for what I'm trying to get. So anyway, while I wait to hear from my friend, then I will just jump right back in here. All right, where were we? So the last step is I'm creating a glow that is emanating from the Dream Prism, which is the necklace charm that Sarah wears. So I'm going to continue adjusting the color. I think the last stage I was on was on the Dream Girl here. I have this really, really good David Lynch coffee. And it kind of fires me up. There's there's a certain feeling around in the dark aspect to the way that I draw. I don't really always know. In fact, I rarely ever do know that I'm on the right track until I reach a certain point. And at that point, it all kind of becomes clear, and then I can just go nuts and make something really shine, And it has to get there. And there's a process of doing that. But I'm starting to feel at least parts of this. I feel like parts of it are working. You see how as I'm adjusting the lighting, I'm adding form to the characters. Like there's some anatomical description, like what's going on with her neck here, that is something that I didn't put in line, but I will put in the lighting. I don't make nearly enough use of it, but Procreate has a pretty cool system for saving color palettes. So you can get your colors set up and then just reference the palette. The reason that I haven't created character palettes yet is that it's pretty easy for me to just copy and paste layers from file to file, and then I can just pick from the layer. And the other reason for that too is it's not really the case that Sarah, for example, has her own palette. She kind of does, but it changes scene by scene. So there isn't really one universal color palette that I can use. Oh, somebody's here. Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hey, that's working.
Hopefully you can hear me well.
Yep. I can hear you just fine. You know what? I'm going to grab my headphones because I want to make sure we don't get an echo.
Okay.
So why don't you, while I'm doing that, tell people who you are?
Yeah, my name is Jemaica. I'm a fantasy artist right now living in Ketchikan, Alaska, but I move a lot. And I mostly paint fairies, mermaids, rainbow hair, and stuff like that.
Right. Rainbow hair. That's something that we've been working on today, in fact.
Yes, I love the rainbow hair that you do.
Right. Well, there's a lot of rainbow hair to do. So
Yeah.
we have our work cut out for us, huh?
Yes.
So Jamaica is a ridiculously talented artist who does very pretty sort of, I'm going to call them kind of fairy-ish characters and wonderful fantasy art and just really beautiful stuff. And it's really an honor to have you here today. So thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.
All right. Actually, I'm going to try this without. Let's see if we get an echo. So let me know if we're getting one, and we'll just I'm figuring this out as I go.
I gotcha.
So now, do you have anything that you want to show, or do you just want to hang out? Because I can set up I think on this I can show your screen if you want to show something digitally, so we can kind of go back and forth.
I can just hang out for now. I'm actually just sketching in my sketchbook.
Oh, cool. All right, great. So yeah, well, what I'm working on today is I'm on a revision of art for Dreamside before we do the Kickstarter campaign, which is coming up. So I'm kind of doing a newer pass on it because the art style has changed a bit since the original version. I should say the original versions because there have been a few versions of it. So I'm just going through kind of from scratch how I'm coloring pages, and I'll be very interested to get your take on it because I'm curious to see what differentiates between our styles and our approaches using the different softwares that we use. But
Yeah.
I guess what I'm wondering is right off the bat is what are you using these days? Are you still working primarily with Clip Studio?
I'm using Photoshop and just like a Gaomon tablet.
Oh, cool. Okay. All right. Wait, were you using Clip Studio or am I wrong about that?
I was using Procreate for a little while.
Oh, cool. Okay. What made you switch over to Photoshop? Just more tools?
I think I was doing Photoshop at home and then Procreate on the iPad
Mhm.
when I was elsewhere, but I was getting all my shortcuts mixed up and trying to like double tap it on the screen, and so I just switched to doing one.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I might switch back sometime though. The iPad always looks good.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, but you know what? It really just comes down to whatever makes the job the easiest for
Hmm.
me. And when I was using like the Wacom tablets, like the Mobile Studio and the Companion, which were great. I mean, getting into hardware, it was great. But every single iteration, I would just snap up as soon as it was available because I love being able to work portably.
Hmm.
And they were really kind of at the forefront of that being possible with something that could actually do a full scale illustration the way that I needed it, which is to have the power that I needed to get the amount of layers that I need, and have the kind of brush sensitivity that I'm looking for. And so
Hmm.
I really commend them for kind of being the first out of the gate with that. But the problem with those is that before you know it, the battery would overheat, and I couldn't really sit and on like the couch and use it. It was tough portably because the battery wouldn't last very long. So
Hmm.
I had a lot of problems with those. I don't know if you had a chance to try any of them out.
Which one was it again?
Oh, the Mobile Studio or the Companion.
I had the Cintiq Companion 2.
Okay, yeah, that's in the line. Yep.
Yep, that was one of the first tablets I had, so I thought it was going fast enough, but when I switched over to a different one, I found out that was actually going really slow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they're great, but it's like they were good stepping stones. But what I love about the iPad is that there's not really a lot of nonsense with it. Like it
Mhm.
just kind of it has the speed I need. I don't have to download drivers all the time. I don't have to worry about the functionality not working, and
Mhm.
so I don't know. I love it. I love it. It lets me jump in and get my work done. But at the same time, if you're accustomed to a certain tool set, you kind of have to adjust to the Procreate workflow, really. And that doesn't always work for every project.
Yeah, I don't think I gave myself a long enough adjustment time until I switched back. I want to try it again.
Okay, yeah, yeah. And that's actually what's funny is I tried the iPad when I initially tried it and I thought, all right, I want to give this a go and see if this would work. The first day I tried it and it was terrible. Like I just could not get used to it. And I had been accustomed to the Wacom devices, so
Mhm.
it has a very different feel. But I think I just kind of stuck with it, and then over the course of the next week, I just got really used to it.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I've stuck with it since. So it's been about 3 years now.
Yeah, I think I might get it again because I have a day job, but it's really slow in the winter.
Oh yeah.
So it'd give me a lot of time to draw on the iPad if I had it.
Oh, good. That's a good kind of job.
Hmm.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and yeah. So yeah, do you have like a storefront where you like sell art prints and stuff, or do you primarily like what is your how do you go about getting your art out there other than on social media?
I have some various stuff. So I have an imprint for all my newest stuff that goes up immediately.
Hmm.
And then I have an Etsy going.
Nice. Okay.
And then I also just do, well, not so much anymore, but the conventions and stuff like that.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah, that'll be nice to be able to start that back up.
Yes. And then Kickstarters for all the new stuff, of course.
Oh, cool, cool. Now you've done Kickstarters in the past, right?
Yeah, I think I've done 11 of them now.
Whoa. Oh, okay. You've done a few of them. All
Yeah.
right. So that's intense. I was gonna ask about that because I knew that you had done one, but I
Mhm.
must have missed the I must have missed 10 memos.
Yeah, I do pretty small ones, so it'll be sometimes I'll do them for like just a pin design or
Oh,
just a
cool.
calendar or something little.
That's interesting. I did one thing I wanted to try with Kickstarter, and I've put the feelers out there a little bit on it, is to do, that kind of smallish Kickstarter for just kind of a single product that would be something like a pin, And I did actually look into the thing that I'm actually planning to do, and I'm in the process of getting pricing and talking with manufacturers about is to do a statue, like a figure, uh,
Ooh.
and for specifically for ukulele,
Yeah.
because I know that there's a sizable interest in getting a figure, which would probably just be like a vinyl figure, uh,
Hmm.
but it would be like an oversize, and it would be a high quality one, and kind of like I don't know if you're a Nintendo uh, fangirl at all, but the like the kind of like the amiibo, but oversize is
Yeah.
what we would be shooting for.
I got you. That would be awesome.
I think it would be pretty cool. The only trouble is I don't know if you tried to have like an actual figurine done before, but you really have to order quite a few to get the price to go down.
Hmm.
And it's with a pin, because I did do one pin for ukulele. It just started easy,
Yeah.
um, but with the pin, the difference in cost wasn't terrible to the point where, if I couldn't sell enough, it wouldn't be that bad.
Yeah.
But with the figure, it's really bad. Like if you, I mean, the price is insane. If you only ordered like say 50 or 100 of them, it's in its own camp, But if you
Yeah.
get the numbers up to like 1,000, then your price per goes way down. So I'm struggling to try and make that work so that I can find a balance, because I really have no idea how much interest there actually would be for a ukulele statue. But I know it's got a fair size fan base that I think would be interested.
Yeah, it's hard to tell on those things. That's why I always do the little Kickstarter to get a feel for how many I should actually get.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So I could use your knowledge here
Yeah.
as I'm working on this. So let me know if I'm doing anything that's just ridiculous. Like wait, Dave, you've been doing that this way this whole time. That, you can correct me. That would be good. But yeah, I'm in general, like I'm curious how you handle this, because this is something that I do all the time, and I always feel like I'm doing it the wrong way, which is when I have multiple light sources and I'm picking, because you do a lot of like glowy effects and things with your work, right? So you're probably dealing with that a lot, where you have these secondary and tertiary light sources,
Mhm.
and how you kind of balance that all together is a challenge. Because what I have here, the way that I've been working is I will put on a base. I'll choose one core light that will be the driver of the shadows. You know.
Sorry if you heard my phone.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, it's not me. It could be anybody in the world except me. Um, but yeah, I put on, so I choose a core light, and then I base my shadows, and that just becomes like the foundation. And then
Mhm.
I'll add on like screen layers or overlays or whatever layer effects I want. I'll put my extra lights on top of that. So I don't know if you have a better way of doing that, but it gets a little confusing for me.
Yeah, on mine I usually just paint all on one layer, kind of.
Oh, you're brave. You're one of
Yeah.
the brave people that scared me. So that's neat. You just go for it.
Yeah, and then I'll just like merge them down if I'm happy with it. And I usually end up adding new light sources like halfway in
Oh wow. Okay.
and then redoing stuff. I really don't plan them as much as I should, which I've been working on.
No, that's good though. I like that. I'm afraid of doing that so often, because it's like, oh well, what if I need to change? The funny thing is, doing that gives you a lot of freedom. because I do find that if I do a paint over layer, I don't worry about the technicalities. Like, well, okay, what layer am I on? Am I using the right color? It's just like, here's the painting, and you can think about it in traditional terms, which I really, really like. I'm just not brave enough to do it.
You should try it sometime. I usually get too confused on my layers, and then that ends up taking a lot of time out of the painting process, finding
Yeah.
whichever layer I need. So I think it goes a lot smoother when I just do one or two.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the same thing that happens to me. It's just the problem. So just as an example, like as I'm doing these paint overs, well, really they're total redraws of the art. I wanted to salvage some elements of the old stuff, but the problem is that I had merged a lot of layers, just kind of in that way. And so I'm like, okay, if I'm going to go in and make some adjustments, then I either just have to paint over the whole thing, or I have to kind of lose what I did and start over, because I wouldn't have that information there. Of course, if you're not a neurotic mess like I am with your revisions, then you won't really have that problem. But I do. I do.
Are you redoing all the artworks in it, or just some of them?
Well, I'm redoing all of them to a point because the reason for the redo is because I had to simplify the art style a bit because it was taking too long to do. So as I thought, okay, as I move on to the next book, there's still a substantial amount to do with Dreamside, and I thought, okay, I don't want to lock myself into this overly complicated art style. And so I revised the method, but in revising the method, it kind of changed the appearance quite a bit. And it's in the process, I realized, okay, I really prefer this new style because it's a little softer. It's a bit more like a colored pencil, and it just looks a bit more like I wanted Dreamside to look. And some of the old pages they just don't really get that. They don't really hit it. It doesn't feel like the right style for it. And so it's a combination of wanting to, get things a little bit simpler so that when I have to, do the art later, it's like my thought is consistency is very important to me. So I'm either kind of picking the old style or I'm picking the new style.
Yeah.
And if I pick the old style, then I won't be done for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so if I thought it was actually faster for me to revise the stuff that I've done already for book one, than to, try and match that complicated, overly detailed style that I had for, for book illustrations. Obviously, you got to be a little bit, you don't want to go too nuts with the detail. And also you need a degree of storytelling clarity on an image by image basis, because when you think about it, this is kind of a glorified graphic novel, because it's not really I wouldn't really call it kind of a traditional illustrated book, because there are too many illustrations. I am actually using word bubbles and here and there, which is a new change, by the way. And but it still has a bulky amount of narrative text. So it's just what needed to happen, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited to see it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to finish
How many
it.
pages do you have to go?
Well, okay, so book one before was longer. I've actually split them up into more books, because I found that the 3 books that I was going to do originally doesn't really work that well, because even with a simplified art style, it still takes a very long time, and I don't want people to be waiting too long between books. So I thought, okay, I can release more frequently if I reduce the amount that's in each title. So I've got 6 basically 100-page books. And then the first one is, aside from the revisions, it's done. But as I go through and revise the art, I'm going to say I'm probably about 60 to 65% of the way through.
Nice.
And with a full-time focus on it, which hopefully I can be after the Kickstarter for a little while, that's really only about 2 months additionally to get things picked up.
Do you usually make art full time?
Yeah, well, everything that I'm doing professionally is art.
Mhm.
It's either stuff that I'm doing for books, which is kind of a relatively new thing in terms of it being a source of finance, because Yucca was really the first project that I actually
Mhm.
sold. It worked out, but Yucca has the advantage of being a recognized property,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit easier to bring people in on something that you can go that already has like a fan base.
Mhm.
So we'll see if I can translate that into an original story like Dreamside.
Yeah. I think people will like it.
I hope so. I hope so. Well, yeah, it would be great if it did work out, because I've got a lot to do with it, which is the other challenge, right? Because if it did work out, I'm kind of committed to doing a lot.
Mhm.
So if it does well, then great. If it doesn't, then at the very least I won't be on the hook to spend a ton of time in a quick period of time. But this story is definitely one that I want to finish. It's just that it would get relegated to more of a back burner project that I would work on as I could.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Hmm. Right. So what are you up to? What are your artistic aspirations?
Right now I'm trying to, and I always give myself extra projects when I'm super busy. So I just finished another coloring book, and I'm currently shipping that out and trying to finish up a 2021 calendar that I'm hoping to launch on Kickstarter on October 1st.
Hmm.
So I have to get all that together.
Oh, so you're trying to fulfill before you launch?
Oh, so I just had one a couple months ago for a coloring book.
Hmm.
And then now I'm fulfilling that one, and then I'm starting a new one for a calendar
Oh, cool. Okay. Okay.
for next year.
I see. So I'm curious about that, because if you've done quite a few Kickstarters as you have, what do you think about overlapping campaigns?
I think it can be a little stressful and scary, but if you know that you can like handle all the orders and keep everything in a timely manner, I think it's fine.
I think I was worried about it mainly because I didn't want to tax the people, in terms of you know introducing too many concepts before I had fulfilled one. Now, with Yuka, it made sense to get that one out there before I try anything else.
Hmm.
But when it comes to the books, I eventually would like to get to the point when they are overlapping, even though they're on a pre-order basis. So basically, be like, because here's the problem that I run into is, since I'm working alone, I can only do so much, right? And the what ends up happening with the Kickstarter is, let's say that I'm working on a book that I'm doing all the art for, right? So I have a campaign, and then I have to make the book, and if I have to wait until it's all completely printed before I can launch the next campaign, there's actually quite a lot of time in there when it's in the printing phase, when I can be working on something new. And I will be working on something new, but I would love the ability, I guess the confidence, to go forward and say, hey, look, backers, I've got another book that I'd like to raise money for while this one's printing, but you don't yet have it. So these are people that would have backed the previous campaign, and they don't yet have their stuff, but I'm asking them for more money now for another
I got.
campaign. So I was a little nervous about doing that, but I'm wondering if you think that could work.
I think it could. I think at least for mine, I think that since I'm doing coloring books and calendars, kind of a different group buys either. So I don't
Hmm.
think it's the exact same group that I'm
Okay,
asking again, except for my like core followers who get the variety of my things.
I see. Okay.
Um, but I actually think I'm gonna have all the coloring books out by the end of the month.
Okay. Okay, that works out. Yeah, all right. Well, if you do have kind of a different base, that's a good point. Yeah, you might not necessarily even have any crossover, or not much of any anyway. So that does make a lot of sense. But I'd like to get to the point. My ultimate goal is I'd like to do 4 books a year.
Yeah.
And in order to get to that, I either have to be working with a much faster art style or
Yeah.
I have to be working with other people. So, I will eventually want to get some help from other artists to get the stuff put together. And that would be good to eventually get to that point. Because then what I can do is I could be working on one myself and I could kind of oversee production of other books. And, we could kind of do like a quarterly Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Because if somebody's backing a book and it, say it's a hardcover book that's at $30 or something like that, it's sort of something that you could come back to on the quarter and just become kind of a regular pre-order.
Yeah.
In that sense, Kickstarter becomes like a pre-order store. Really, is kind of what it is.
Yeah. That's at least how I've been sort of treating it, like a pre-order store, but it's not made yet. Well, I guess that's what a pre-order is.
Well, I think it's great because it lets you know your numbers, right? Like you know without having to overprint kind of what people are what's already sold. Like you get the sales before you go to manufacturing, which is something that you couldn't really do in the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's great. I think I usually see how the Kickstarter did and then do about double whatever the Kickstarter did just to have for a convention or art fair
Okay.
and see how it sells from there.
Now, here's a big question. Have you ever thought of doing a longer form project like a book?
I do want to do another art book, but it's not like it's its own project, I suppose. Though I want to do a hardcover.
Well, like a narrative book, like a.
Yeah. I tried one that was just super short in like Inktober. I did a little narrative. And I might do another one sometime. I just haven't thought of any compelling stories I have to get out there yet.
Okay, well, all right, well, good. Then I can have you do art for what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's usually just I get an idea for like a one-off illustration and go for that and then start the next one.
Yeah, and that's good because it lets you sort of prioritize each illustration as needed. You can go through and say, hey, this is one I want to spend a little bit more time on, and give it the attention that it needs.
Yeah, I'm always bad at that because I start getting excited for the next one.
Yeah.
And then I want to wrap up the the
Oh
other
yeah,
one.
yeah. You get the illustrator ADD.
Yeah, that always happens with mine.
That's a problem, but you know what? It's just part of the process.
Yeah, and I'm glad at least I have too many ideas and I'm not struggling to find any.
Better than the other way around, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm realizing as I'm painting this that so I had in one of the I forget why I do things the way that I do sometimes. I had these pillows a different color and in the original, and I'm like, no, I'm going to go to white when I was drawing the pillows in another shot. And now I'm remembering why I made them a different color, and it's so that they don't blend in too much with the Dreamgirls outfit.
Yeah.
So I've got to change the color of those. Now let's test out this nice little color replace function that we apparently have. Let's see how this works. Recolor. There it is. All right, let's see. I'm going to do a blue.
Ooh.
That probably works, right?
Yeah. Oh man, every time I see the different functions that the Procreate has.
Well, this is great because the flood function works pretty well. You can see how it actually spills into the mattress sheets there. So if you go too far, but the thing is, if you go too little, of course, because it's a paint, right? Because it's a little rough, it's not like a solid color. It's gonna leave some noise in there. So I can kind of push in a little bit there. And then what's cool is I can just tap into other areas. And it will very quickly replace all of them.
Did they add a liquify tool in yet?
They do have a liquify tool. It is called Warp, and they also have Distort. But Warp it's not exactly like liquify, but it works functionally in the same basic way. So, like for example, if I'll just turn everything off except for the line here, so I can make a selection and then I can go to Warp and I get the left. There we go.
Perfect.
Yeah, done. So yeah, I think it works, similarly.
Yeah,
You just kind of have to adapt to it a little bit. Do you do a lot of that sort of adjustment?
I do. I'm always going back and forth with like, I need the eye to be 1 centimeter higher. Okay, maybe 1 centimeter lower, and then I
Mm-hmm.
like being able to adjust it really finely.
Yeah, well, you have that ability, and you can also do a multi-layer adjustment in this, which is really, really handy and something that I does Photoshop still not have, where basically you can go in and say, all right, I want to adjust this layer, this layer, this layer.
Oh, if you
Um,
need a couple. Mm-mm.
yeah. Oh man, that because this is a major time saver. So like I'm selecting all the layers that have the character, right? So if I want to make an adjustment, I can come in and say, okay, let's just say that I wanted to move the head when I whoops. Well, yeah, it will liquefy the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's adjusting all those layers at once.
Man.
So
Yep, I
that's
have
pretty
not seen
handy.
that in Photoshop.
Yeah, well, I was curious about that. So how would you make that kind of adjustment in Photoshop then, if you're using the liquefy tool? Like if you
I would
needed to
just
affect multiple layers.
I would just merge them all into one and do it.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Right. Because you're working with the one layer. Got it.
Yeah. I don't know how other people would do it though. Sometimes I'll use a line art and color under it. Like the one in my profile picture I'm using right now, I
Hmm.
had a line art, but
Okay.
then I started painting on top of that too.
Okay. So let me ask you, why do you merge as opposed to creating a layer on top of everything and just doing a paint over?
I do that too. I just don't want too many layers, so I'll duplicate what I'm working on
I
and
see.
then work on that for maybe 30 minutes and then compare it to the one under it, turn it off and on, and then merge it if I like it and then do it again.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. That's awesome. What's funny is when I first started working digitally, I did the same thing because I used to do these more painterly pieces that didn't really use line art. It was all color based. And so it actually made the most sense for me to merge everything. I was also getting very abstract for a while where, I didn't have to worry as much about retaining very delicate shapes, because as you perfectly well know, probably even more than I do, although you may be the only person I know who is this concerned with the delicate nature of having very angelic faces. And
Mm-hmm.
why it is, I keep telling people of all the things that I draw, it's the hardest because if anything is even slightly off, then it's very, very noticeable.
Yeah.
And so when I was initially painting digitally, that just wasn't something that I was concerned with.
Yeah, it's always the face is always the hardest part.
It really is. It really is. Although it's great practice. It's like artist boot camp.
Yeah. It's funny. I always start off not liking the face I've drawn and then I work on it forever. And then when I'm done with it, I'm like, this looks like every other face that I've drawn. Somehow it always comes back to some same kind of face, even if I work on it for a really long time.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you have a particular approach, and it makes sense, and
Yeah.
that's good because it keeps them in sync. I mean, people who will love your art, I find, will expect you to keep up a certain style. It's funny because so many times when I've talked with artists who have been, working for quite a while, they kind of lament that they're over time they're like, okay, I'm kind of tired of doing the same thing. I want to try something new, but people really want me to keep doing this one thing. It's like, well, that's because if you do something well, people want more of it. That's
Yeah.
not a bad thing.
I think a lot of artists have that. Oh, am I still on? My screen just went black for a second. I think a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of artists have that issue when they do things like the Patreon and stuff, and then they're thinking, oh, I have all these people who want the same art as before,
Mm-hmm.
and think they have to keep doing it one way.
Right, right. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. But that's kind of the trade-off, right? There's always trade-offs. It's like if
Mm-hmm.
you find a support for something that you're doing. I mean, I can't imagine you don't love the type of art that you're making because it's very evident in the final that
Mm-hmm.
it was made with quite a lot of love put into it. You
Yeah.
can really sense that in stuff when people care a lot about what they're doing.
I'm glad mine looks that way.
Yeah. I mean, you can sense the energy that was put into it, and it's got a certain kind of distinct feel and flavor that when you have something that was made with passion, and you can always tell when something was not made with passion too, vice versa, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's very evident as I look at those pieces. So I'm curious what you're sketching right now.
Just faces.
Well, speaking of which, right.
I want to
So
try to do more sketching because once I got my tablet, which was, forever ago, I really
mhm,
put sketching on the side, or I digitally sketch, but now with traditional sketching,
right.
um, I feel super rusty, and I'd still like to do that sometimes, or make a sketchbook maybe one day.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Now, what do we have to do to get you to draw one of the Dreamside characters?
Oh, I totally could.
See how
I
I put you on the
really,
spot.
yeah.
I
I
have to
don't
bring
think
you on
you'd
a
have to
live
do
stream, so I have it
much of
recorded.
anything.
But that would be really cool. We got to figure something out there.
Yeah, we should. I really like, I mean, the rainbowy hair, especially starting with the reds that she
Yeah,
has.
yeah.
Yeah.
She has a lot of morphing that occurs throughout the books. Like there's her form changes a little bit here and there. I don't want to give away spoilers, but she's kind of an interesting character because the way to think about the hair, by the way, is she's underwater. So think about her as being underwater. So when I'm drawing the hair, I just think about if she was sitting underwater, like what would happen with the hair, provided that it stays together. It doesn't like octopus out, too
Yeah.
much. So it stays in this form because it's a combination of like the motion that it takes on is sort of underwater, but she's also supposed to look like she's perpetually flying. So that's one of the reasons that the hair stays in this sort of uh, clustered shape like this. Is that if
Mhm.
you imagine like the wind blowing, right? So the hair kind of keeps together, but it also, if she's sitting still, it'll kind of float around a little bit, but it doesn't really ever hang down. In fact, I don't think there's ever really a point at all in the story where her hair hangs down and is kind of affected that way. So it's an interesting thing about the character that she has that whimsical kind of in-flight appearance.
Yeah, the hair almost reminds me of like a magical Jessie from Team Rocket.
Team Rocket. Oh, from Pokemon. I know.
Yeah, she has the hair that's always up.
Pokemon was one of the only games that Nintendo has ever produced that it passed me by.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, but I know it's insanely popular. But it's just one of those ones that when I was a kid, it didn't grip me.
I loved it.
It definitely has a lot of fans, and I know how fantastic those games are. I mean, you can't be that beloved and not be just a phenomenal game.
Yeah, I used to want to when I was a kid, I wanted to just design new Pokemon, and work there.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But I also wanted to design Neopets and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I could get around with this stuff. We could do a few different things.
Yeah.
I'm going to merge this because Procreate, one of the problems that you run into with Procreate is layer limitations, because the iPad can't really handle all that much.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is, speaking of faces, I've got to get some detail on the Dream Girl's face. It's funny how much their faces will come alive when you add. I use an overlay layer and I push the colors just a little bit here and there.
Mm.
This one is just going to be a paint over because she has a hint of lipstick, but it's really not lipstick. It's so it kind of, it's a little bit more organic than that. It's kind of just lip color because
Mm.
I don't want the characters to look too made up.
Yeah.
But I need that little extra bit of color in there, especially for this character because she is not a human. She's kind of from a different place.
Yeah.
And I mean, she comes from this fantasy world. And so her form can morph and change depending on what's needed for the scene. And like her hair, for example, I call it mood hair because it will actually change colors, depending on her emotional state. So the hair will reflect what she's saying or feeling.
I like that.
We don't really see that happen in the first book, but that's something that does come up later. So her hair color changes.
I've
Yeah.
been thinking of taking some of the paintings that I've done in the past and trying to build a character around it because I don't have too many characters. I
Right.
like to try
Okay.
making some.
That would be great. Yeah. I mean, you have so much to pull from.
Yeah, I usually draw them once and don't name them or anything.
Right. Because you have that artist ADD and you want to move on to the next thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe I can throw them all into a. Well, I've thought about like pairing them and putting them in illustrations together and how they would interact and stuff like that.
You mean just mixing characters together and making new illustrations that feature like multiple characters?
Yeah,
Very cool.
I think that's like the bridge between just illustrating and then having a story is like some storytelling illustrations.
Right. No, that makes sense. Yes, and it would be a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, I'll keep pushing you forever to do a storybook. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, that would be so cool because I know that you would do so well with that. I'm sure people have asked you about that as well.
They have.
Yeah.
And if I'm making a comic or something, and I'm like, oh, not yet, just a calendar. I actually have a side project going with a friend that makes D&D miniatures.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Just to design some for that, which is kind of way off from what I usually do, but that'll be a fun one.
Cool. So you're doing concept drawings basically for figures?
Yeah, that they'll model it off of, and they're actually going to be animal themed. So it's kind of far out from what I normally have. I need to get my
Wow.
butt into gear and start on that.
Okay. So are they anthropomorphized animals or are they more like just traditional animals or
Anthropomorphized, but not a ton.
okay.
Kind of, I'm trying to think of something it would be similar to.
Okay. That makes sense. Cool. That'll
But
be
that'll
an
be a fun
interesting
project.
thing. So will he will produce these miniatures like his
Yeah,
actual figurines?
we were going to do a Kickstarter, and then people could get as a reward either their own that they can print if they have a 3D printer,
Oh, cool.
or we'd print and send them to them, and he paints them and everything too, so they'll be pretty cool.
That is rad. So then you get the awesome experience of seeing the concepts kind of turned into an actual model, which
Yeah,
is
I think it'll be a lot of fun.
that has got to be wicked cool.
Kind of like your figurines. Maybe you could 3D print them.
Yeah, I did think about 3D printing. So the tricky thing about it is, well, first of all, I don't know anything about doing that myself. So I'd have to talk to somebody who does. But I wanted to get kind of a complete package where it would be the figure, and then it also be colored, right? So it has to be painted. Um, but and also what I was hoping to do is produce like a collector's box for it. So some of the manufacturers that I've talked to, they do that kind of thing all the time, and they can produce the whole package as needed. So they'll go through and they'll paint it. They'll do the airbrush painting, and they'll also produce a box like using a custom die for the box. So some pretty cool stuff that you can get done. So I am interested in if 3D printing is a viable way of doing it, that would be great. And I do think 3D printing would be really smart to look into for that because the if we wanted to do a smaller run, going to the manufacturer is it's just too much money. Like it makes it basically impossible. And I don't want to end up in a situation where, say, I didn't get enough support on Kickstarter. I mean, of course, we can raise the goal to what it has to be to make that make sense. But I would it's a balancing act. I want to keep the goal low enough that it's easily achievable. But if you just hit the goal with Kickstarter, it's kind of not ideal.
Yeah, you want it to be enough to have it pay for some labor of doing it and all kinds of stuff.
Right, right. But if I put that ideal cost in there, then the goal is too high, and I want to be able to hit the goal quickly because I do understand. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but my understanding is that Kickstarter helps promote projects a little bit better if they hit the goal sooner.
Yeah,
Um,
I've heard that.
yeah, so I kind of feel like it's a balancing act, almost like an eBay auction. You put a really low goal, um,
Hmm.
and then as a result of putting the lower goal, interestingly, you can often get a higher result out of it.
Yeah, I
Um,
can never tell if it just automatically picks the Kickstarter favorites or if it's like a person going through and picking them or
I don't know, but I think to some degree they have human involvement with it. For
Mhm.
like the staff picks, but I think there are probably some layers that kind of automate the process, and then they will go through and you know do kind of the final pick by like a person. I have a feeling that's how it's done.
Yeah, that'd be an awesome job to have.
Yeah, to pick a
Pick
to
the
pick
best
Kickstarter.
Kickstarters.
Yeah, yeah, that would be fun. That would be fun. Although you would have everybody in the world trying to be your friend.
Oh yeah, true. You'd have to be a secret.
Yeah, yes, I am a secret staff picker for Kickstarter. I love getting these little kind of edge highlights um, on faces that just give a little bit more contrast to areas like
Mhm.
around the nose. I always find that just adds so much.
Yeah, I like doing that and all the little sparkles in the eyes and other little sparkles. Sometimes I'll start adding sparkles way too early, just on a
Yeah,
top
you
layer,
just
and then
can't wait. You can't wait. I cannot hold back on those sparkles.
yep, and I end up painting on top of them and doing them again. But it just looks better with sparkles, I think.
It just looks better with sparkles. It's true. I added sparkles to a piece I was working on the other day, and it was like, what was missing? Oh, sparkles. Of course, the sparkles are what's missing.
And the
No,
glowing.
they really do add a lot, though.
Hmm. Yeah, with how I just start painting on one layer, even if I start with line art,
Hmm.
then I usually for my coloring books I have to go back and retrace all the finished paintings since now the line art's changed,
Okay.
and then turn that into the coloring book.
Oh, right, right, right. Because the coloring book is just line art, right?
Yeah, but I usually don't have it anymore after I've painted over it so much.
So you actually trace over the stuff to make a new line art.
Yeah,
Oh, that's time consuming, isn't it?
it's not too bad. I just set aside, I need to draw over these 30 paintings I have, and the worst thing though is if I'll usually do a grayscale and then just a black and white line. I
Okay.
had an issue this last time where they like got merged. Um,
Oh, okay.
and I had to redo twice
Yeah,
quite a
there's
couple of
no way to pull the line out of that, right?
them. No. But yeah,
Now,
that's my process. I'll probably get a better process later on, but that's it now.
okay. No, I mean, if it works, it works. It's like I brought this up earlier in the earlier stream today. Is I'm acutely aware as I'm working at any given time that the process I'm using to do something is probably the dumb way. There is always a smarter way of doing something. And at the same time, I always tell myself, okay, if I stop to fix my process to something that's a little smarter, it's going to take me time. It's going to take time away from actually just producing. It always ends up taking more time than it would have been if I just continued doing it the broken way, you know?
Yep. Yeah, I have the same thing.
Hmm.
I'll try and do a new way I saw in a tutorial or something cleaner, but it's easier if I just go for it without
Yeah.
thinking about
Right. Right. Yeah. I don't overthink it. Right.
it.
And it's kind of frustrating because I'll have people will watch me and say, wait a minute, why are you doing that?
Hmm.
Don't you know that this tool exists? And I might give it a go, but oftentimes the tool just does end up adding time, and it actually doesn't end up saving time. Technically it should work,
Hmm.
but it doesn't. In practice, it doesn't really save time.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do?
And then it's fun when I'm trying to I was trying to pull together an art book and was trying to make some tutorials of how I work, but I was finding they were such short tutorials because I guess it's hard to explain what I'm doing. I'm like, I just do what feels right.
Yeah, yeah, your
Just
tut-
paint
I'm imagining your tutorial is just like that meme where they show the
the
it's like what
owl.
this just the owl. Yeah, it's like and just finish the owl. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be
Um,
like, just paint how it feels right, and then just do that for 10 years.
just make it good. That's your tutorial. Just paint it.
Yeah.
Just paint it.
I'll figure out some way to nicely describe it before I go all out and do an art book.
Well, maybe so. Do you have the same problem I have then, where your method is kind of slapdash in the sense that you're kind of moving around the whole piece all the time, and it's not really that organized. So it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to describe to somebody that I use this particular method. Like, here's my organized approach because I don't really have one.
Yeah, like I don't do any certain part first, though I usually kind of work on the face first, but I'll just jump
Mm.
around the whole canvas. And one that I'm working on now was a girl in like a whole fur outfit. Then that turned into completely changed that. She turned into an angel, and then she started looking more like a Digimon with like armor on and stuff. So it's just all over the place and always changing.
Yeah,
But I know when I like it.
I like the fact that you say Digimon, like that's just the most casual thing in the world. Well, you know, she turned into a Digimon, and I'm thinking, so Digimon, of course, being in somewhat comparative world to Pokemon.
Yeah, they have some more like human monsters, I guess, and they're always wearing like crazy armor and lots of belts and stuff like that, I guess.
Armor and belts, right? So it's like Pokemon, but with more armor.
Yeah, so now the angel has like armor on her wings, and because of that, it looks kind of Digimonish.
Oh, there we go. Well, not see now I know what you mean when you say it's Digimonish.
Yeah, I guess I should explain.
No, no, I'm mostly messing with you. I know what Digimon is. I'm not that uncool, but yeah, man, it's just such a huge world, you know, that and that seems like there's so much to know about Pokemon. I think maybe part of the problem with Pokemon for me was that I kind of missed the boat the first time. And so when I
Mhm.
went to look into it later, I felt like I was already so behind. Same thing happened with the game Kingdom Hearts,
Yeah,
which
I missed that one.
well, yeah, well, you know, people seem to really love Kingdom Hearts, but I've always wanted to kind of get into it, but I kind of feel like I miss so much that if I go and play it now, it's like I have too much work to do. It's like I have to catch up, and oh, I got to play this game and that game, and you know,
Yeah.
you know, just I just want to play the game, but I don't want to have to work too hard at it.
Yeah, I was like that with Zelda, where I didn't actually play one until it was out on, gosh, Twilight Princess, whenever that came out.
That was 9,000 years ago. I think that came
Yeah.
out. If you're talking about the original one, the one that was on the Wii.
Yeah, the Wii.
Oh yeah, that was back in when was that? 2005 or so.
But I had never played one of the Game Boy ones or anything, so I really didn't know
Oh, that was
what
the
was
very
going
first
on.
Zelda you played.
Yeah, the first time I had played one of their games.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, yeah.
So I was out
Yeah.
of the loop on that.
Zelda is just I can never get enough Zelda.
And
I
since I'm always drawing elves, people always think that I must have loved Zelda, but I kind of missed it.
Yeah, but well, you should do man if you did any sort of take on a Zelda world, I'm sure that would be something people would
Yeah,
love to see.
I should sometime. I had the, what was the newest one? Breath of the Wild, and that was beautiful.
Hmm.
I loved that.
That is a fun game. That game was reminded me of the original Zelda, you know, because it was a very open game. You could kind of just go where you wanted, um, and that's something about Zelda that I used to love. But I think because when I was a kid, I loved playing games that let you explore. It
Hmm.
wasn't really you weren't really on a too much of a set path.
Yeah.
Um, and so many games since then. Maybe because they've gotten so complicated. I mean, when I worked at Insomniac, for example, I mean, it was something that was a constant worry. Was, is the player going to know where they should go? That sort of thing. Whereas with a game like Breath of the Wild, there's just a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was a good one. I still never finished it, and I don't know what I did with my game cartridge.
Well, if you find it, but you saw enough of it, right?
Yeah, I got a couple good hours in. Well, more than a couple, but a good chunk of time in.
All right. Okay. Well, good. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. So what are your favorite, besides doing kind of cute fairy girls, what are your favorite things to draw otherwise? What would be like an interesting challenge for you and something that you would like to take on? Something that you haven't tried yet, or something that you haven't tried much of? Because I know you get a million ideas and there's all stuff that you want to do. And then you're like, okay, well, I don't have time for that. I'll do it later. But I know that has to happen.
I was thinking I do want to practice my clothing design and stuff more. I wanted to research old fashions, like Viking fashion and cool stuff like that, and kind of make designs based off that. I was thinking about that this week.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Just more stuff for my characters to wear.
Yeah, and then you could, right, because you could adapt it to all your different characters. That's a good point. I love it when I reach this point now. I just have to make this change because it'll drive me nuts otherwise. Is that her eyes, the way I originally drew them in the sketch, looked like they were looking where I needed them to, but now I'm realizing that she's not looking at the dream prison.
That's probably what I changed the most in my pictures, is how the eyes are directed.
Right. Yeah. Because if they're off, I mean, because the thing is, the reader, the viewer, and will snap their eyes to the character's eyes when you look at an illustration. Like, it's the first thing. You can't help it. And every time, if you're reading a book, if you turn the page, so there we go. Now she's looking at it.
Perfect.
Because if you turn the page, you go to a new page. You can't stop yourself from snapping to the eye of the character. And it's really where our attention goes. And then we kind of deviate from there and see the rest of the piece. It really comes down to the eyes.
I also want to try more expressions. That's on my to-do list.
Expressions, cool. Yep, that's always fantastic practice. Yeah, too.
Yeah, I'm usually just doing happy, content, those two.
Do terror. Do terrified. Try something that's a totally opposite end of the spectrum. That would be fun.
I'm just excited to have more time now that it's winter season almost.
That's right. Yeah, we're getting close. Now you're up and you're way up there.
Yes, I am. So it already kind of feels like winter.
Right. I don't like. What are the but are the summers not too crazy cold?
They aren't. But this summer we had a record. I think it was the second most rain they've had. And I'm in Ketchikan, which is an island sort of off Alaska, pretty close to Canada. But gets a ton of rain, 4 times more rain than Seattle, apparently.
Right. Oh, wow. Really?
That's what I've heard. I have to look it up.
It's
definitely more than Seattle.
Seattle is just made of rain. It's the city of rain.
But we did have a good 3 or 4 weeks maybe of sun.
Okay. Yeah, it's that's got to be an experience going up there.
Yeah, I saw a whale today, so that was nice.
Just hanging outside, just outside my house, whale walking around.
Yeah.
No problem. It's just perfectly normal up here in Alaska.
Yeah, it is pretty. It's inspiring for artwork for sure. It's very pretty.
Now, where would you have seen a whale? Now, you're close, obviously, to a significant body of water.
Yes, I work at a marina right now.
Oh, cool.
So it was just right. I mean, I could have thrown a rock at it, though I wouldn't. It was like 40 feet away, I'd say.
And this was it? Do you know what kind it was?
I think a humpback, but I
Okay.
just saw like the little spout of water and then its back go
Mm-hmm.
out and into the water. I was so excited because I hadn't seen one since
That's
I was little.
cool. That is neat.
And that's why I'll get so much drawing time in the winter because really nobody's using a marina in the winter. Um,
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm
So
more like security guard.
okay, yeah. So then that's gonna yeah. But I've joked so many times with people, with young people who are getting into the art world, and there's always an exciting um, how to put this. They're always very excited about the prospect of making money doing artwork, and I say, yeah, well, before you do that, if you do get some sort of a job that can help pay the bills, get one try and figure out a job that will let you take some time occasionally to work on your art because that's actually like the perfect scenario. When I was in when I was I think I told the story the other day. So I'll tell it very briefly. But when I was working at Insomniac, I wanted to get into a bit more narrative, based art, which I translated into I kind of want to go work at Pixar. And I happened to know somebody in the story department at Pixar. And so I contacted my friend and I said, hey, can you help me adjust my portfolio so, it's where it needs to be for Pixar? And you can just tell me what they would want to see. And then I'll keep working at it until you say it's ready to go. Right. And he did that and it was great. And we were having some nice back and forth on it. And then what I started to very quickly realize is that if I went to Pixar, I would have zero creative energy at the end of the day to work on my own stuff. And I thought, what's actually more important than working at Pixar is working on stuff like this. That's really important to me. Um, because I thought, oh, if because my job was kind of a mix of tasks at Insomniac. I did a number of things, but it didn't really sap all my creative energy. It was kind of I would have to do things like scripting here and there, or maybe on a particular day I would be working with a designer on some task, right? So it would leave creative energy. So when I got home, I would get excited because I hadn't been working in just a creative aspect all day long. I could kind of save some of that energy for when I got home. And I thought, okay, at Pixar, that's never going to be the case. So
Mm-hmm.
one thing that's kind of fun about a job that's not art based, but especially one that lets you interact with nature, is that, man, it's going to fuel your artistic passion heavily. And then when you get home and you can channel that into your work, I think that's really a great angle for it.
Yeah, I think that's why I went back to having like a non-art job. For a while, I did mostly commissions for
Hmm.
income, and I would just be so tired of drawing after the commissions, or like physically tired. My wrist would start to hurt.
That's
Never
another problem. Yeah.
so then I wouldn't have any time to work on my own stuff. And when I'm at a boring job all day, I'm thinking of all the art that I'm gonna make, and then I'm really psyched for it when I do get off work.
Yeah, then you can just give it your all. That's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I tell people that basically just what you just said, and they don't really believe me.
Yeah.
I tell them it's like, look, the thing is, you have a certain amount of energy during the day, and it's not, as you get older, of course, it gets worse. But the thing about it is, it's not so much that it's like you could have all the passion in the world, but when you've been working all day, your 10 o'clock p.m. energy is not the same as your 10 a.m. energy.
Yeah.
And so that shows in the art, and so if you don't want to end up in a situation where it's like, okay, I'm giving it my 10 p.m. energy, for the project that I want to represent me and my work, because I spent all day, pouring my efforts into other tasks that are too related to what I want to do at night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, for me, it was mostly that the wrist hurting or whatever. I was thinking I only have mentally and physically like a couple drawing hours a day in me.
Hmm.
And I want to use them on something that I want to do. Even though I got lovely commissions and cool ideas, I just still had more that I needed to make.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yep. No, that's good that you figured that out.
Mm-hmm.
As a lot of people go a lot further in a bad direction before they do figure that kind of thing out.
And I think maybe I'll try it again after my Etsy store and stuff is kind of going on its own.
Mm-hmm.
I can just have
Okay,
that as income.
that makes sense. And yeah, do you think that you could make that crossover? Like, do you think that you could get to the point where you would be able to bring in what you need artistically if you ignored for a moment the kind of the wrist strain and the if you just kind of if you were in a position where uh, that wasn't a factor, is that something that you think you feel like you could cross over and say, all right, I think I'm actually going to be able to make enough to pay the bills through your art?
Oh, if I didn't have any wrist pain and stuff?
Hmm.
Yeah, I was managing it before, but it was a little tough, especially finding new commissions all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
But if I were to be getting more like client projects and things like that, um, just being established longer, I'd
Hmm.
probably do it again.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
So now I'm just making new products to fill my store with, like the coloring books and calendars and all that.
Right. Hmm. And those are they kind of what's kind of nice about something like a coloring book is that you have a lot more freedom, I guess. I feel like, of course, you probably want a consistent theme, but for the most part, you have a lot of freedom in terms of what each illustration can be. And they don't necessarily have to be interconnected.
Yeah, mine were just like my paintings are just various magical ladies, is sort of the theme of the book.
Right? Okay, magical ladies. Hmm.
And people really like them at most of the conventions and art fairs that I was at. Like last year, coloring books really weren't a big thing. I'd be like the only coloring book there.
Right. Oh, really?
Yeah, I hadn't seen really any of them before.
Hmm. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, and with one of the things that a lot of people run into with coloring books that I see as kind of a strange thing, is that when you're doing a coloring book, correct me if I'm wrong, but you want it to kind of be a total black line, right? You want it to be just be, kind of 100% solid instead of doing grayscale, because otherwise, when you print it in black and white, it'll kind of have that gray ghosty look to it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I thought that people wanted really like solid coloring book lines like you'd imagine.
Hmm.
But I found, and I was doing polls and stuff on Twitter, that people liked the sketchy, like just coloring in your sketches pretty much.
Really?
And that if they were messy, they were fine with it.
That's interesting. I
And
would
I
not
did
have thought.
download a coloring book that, and I might be saying her name wrong, Loish, is it?
I don't know how to say her name.
Yeah, she
I
did
know who you're
like
talking about.
a little coloring book that was like a free download for a while.
Hmm.
Um, and all those were just sketches that people were coloring and they loved them.
Interesting. Yeah. So a sketchy line, of course, means that it has tones other than black.
Yeah.
There's going to be a little bit of fade out of the line, um, and so you wouldn't be doing like a pure black print job on that. It would basically be a grayscale, um,
Yeah.
and people are okay with that.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of grayscale pages. Some people really prefer just the line, but some people like the grayscale, so I just offer both.
So you offer both, like, as an option, like somebody could pick the solid line or a grayscale.
Yeah, so I have one coloring book where the pages are double-sided. One side is a very light grayscale and one side's just the black and white of the same image.
Oh, interesting.
And then
Okay.
I have ones that you can print at home, which is really the nicest because then I don't have to ship anything.
Yeah. Right.
It's super easy.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And how many of these coloring books have you made?
This is my second one.
Okay, okay.
So I'm still
Well,
working on them, but I really only have about 30 illustrations in it.
hmm I had thought about doing a coloring book as like a an extra for a Dreamside campaign.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But well, what you're telling me about people being okay with the sketchy line is a little bit more encouraging because that's kind of the issue is that I'm like, well, I can't take the time to go in and do like a solid black line.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think people like the sketchy. And then it's such a cheap printing project because there's no color.
right, right. And I assume like what do you do? How do you get them produced? Do you work with like a domestic printer or what do you do?
Yeah, I worked with my first one I did Awesome Merchandise. I don't know if you know that company.
No, I don't.
They're in the UK. And then this one I did Mixum, which I think is also in the UK.
Okay.
As far as the I was trying to do one that was in the US, but then I get a huge shipping charge for Alaska. And if I'm, going internationally, then the shipping's kind of the same no matter where you are in the US.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
And I'd
Yeah.
have to do air since I'm on an island. They can't do ground.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because shipping is always a nightmare.
Yeah, when
Which
you're getting
is
a lot of heavy books.
yes, 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 and yeah, like with Yuka, that was quite a learning process.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very tricky to set up shipping. But I mean, I've got a setup I kind of like for shipping. That if you get to the point where you're doing these really regularly, and as long as you do not have to directly interact with them, you could do what I did for Yuka, which is you have them go directly from the printer to a fulfillment center and have them ship out the stuff, because that actually worked out pretty well. It cost me a little bit more money because I didn't really integrate the um, the fulfillment costs into the campaign. So that was basically just an extra cost on my end. But the thing
Mm-hmm.
is, the fulfillment centers get discount shipping rates because they ship so much that even though I pay them more money for their service, I would save a bit of money on postage. It was kind of like maybe like if I would pay like if it would cost me per package, like let's just say it would cost me $4 more per package than for me to ship out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me to pack it up, first of all, I'd have to have my supplies, which they cover in that like $4 or $5 charge or whatever it is, right? And so maybe that's about 50 cents or $1 per package, depending on the packaging. And there's my time, to put things together. And I have to like either arrange pickups or take it to the post office, and that's actually quite a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rates that I would get would be higher than what they would pay. So they might charge me $4 extra per package, but I will save $3 on the postage cost and the packaging. So really, it only costs me about an extra dollar or so per package to have them do everything.
That
You know
sounds
what I
great.
mean? Yeah, right. And then I don't have to do anything. So if you have a like, because that's part of being realistic with these campaigns. Like if I were to do say 4 of them a year, um, then I want to do something kind of like that where I could have the books produced and they go right to the fulfillment center, and that way I never have to worry about fulfillment. And depending on how integrated I am, well, I guess how integrated they can be with my tool set, they might even just be able to get all the ordering information. Like right now, at least for my web page store, it's all directly integrated with them. So now I get like same day fulfillment because they get a notification of my orders. So as the order comes in, they go out like immediately, like within 45 minutes, they ship them out. And so if somebody orders, it's like Amazon caliber shipping speed.
That'd
Um,
be awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and then I don't have to deal with it. Like I don't right now when I put something in my store, I send them inventory, right? So they have it, and then I pay them like a monthly fee, which is not bad for them to store the stuff because I don't take up much room because I don't have that much stuff yet.
Mhm.
And then they just pull from the inventory as needed, and it's all automated. It's all automated. So it's I don't even deal with orders unless there's a problem. If there's a problem and somebody sends me a message, and then I have to look into it. But that only really happens when there's a problem.
Yeah. I'm gonna need to look up the one that you're using. That sounds great.
Yeah, well, I'm working with MPAC, which is there are a multitude of fulfillment houses, that you could use.
Yeah.
And MPAC, of course, is a ways from you. They're in Tennessee,
Mhm.
but they're great because I've only worked with one of them, and like I said, it's a fulfillment house. Like if you were to work with a fulfillment center in general. So usually when people would say, well, it's not worth it because I'm going to have to pay them a packing fee. And if you're selling something that's small, it's probably not really worth it, because let's say that you were going to charge, let's say it's a small, like a pin or something like that would only cost maybe $4 or something for you to ship, right?
Yeah.
For them to do that, you're going to have to raise your shipping cost to like $8,
Mhm.
and so that might be too much money for people who just want a pin, maybe that costs $12 or $15, and they're like, oh, I want to keep it under 20, and now with them, you're at like $23. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But that's kind of a worst case scenario, because what's far more likely is, let's say that you have, like, if you're selling books or things like that, where you have maybe ancillary products, so people order the book plus an extra thing. In that case, the shipping pricing that they're going to get is going to be cheaper than what you could get at the post office, kind of like I was explaining earlier. So maybe
Mhm.
you would charge $7 shipping or $6 shipping or whatever, and then their shipping cost will raise it up to like $9 shipping. Okay. So you could even eat that cost, and you could just say it's worth it for me, to lose $2 on the sale, and I'll keep my shipping cost the same for the customer, or raise it a little bit and just see if it discourages sales. But
Yeah.
it's pretty helpful to not have to worry about any of it yourself.
Yeah, there's even just finding a place for all of it, especially books.
Oh yeah, right, and keep it all in good order and everything too. Because like I always worry about humidity. If I'm storing the stuff properly,
Yeah.
is it going to cause warping? So they'll have a climate controlled and humidity controlled warehouse. And generally, fulfillment centers will have, they'll make sure that the stuff won't get destroyed while it's being stored.
Yeah, even just that seems worth it, especially in Alaska. There's a lot of humidity.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know anything about the weather over there, but I can imagine it would get humid when it's in the summer.
It's hazardous to paper.
Hazardous to paper, will cause wrinkling.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah, I don't know. It's not worth it in every circumstance, but um, and I'm simplifying it a little bit here. Every circumstance is going to be a little bit different, and like most services, it gets cheaper as you do more. So like they ideally, like any fulfillment center loves the idea of doing like a large bulk at once, which is actually why they are so receptive to Kickstarter fulfillment,
Mhm.
because with a Kickstarter, they get to do a big bulk order all at once. There
Yeah.
actually is something that they did that's really crazy that we did not actually get to happen, but it was supposed to, which is UPS actually offers a bulk shipment discount if you were to do a number of orders at once. I think it's like more than 300 orders qualifies for the discount.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, well, no, no, no. You wouldn't be able to get it yourself. You have to have like a relationship with them through a company like this. But that's kind of the point. So they were getting pricing. Again, it didn't happen because there was some sort of weird approval process. They had to get clearance from the government. It's like it has to go through customs, because the way it works is not through customs, but through the what is the airline security, the TSA, because they use commercial airlines to send stuff, which they normally do not do. So like it's much cheaper to ship that way. So what would happen is, let's say I were to send a book that's 2 pounds to England, right? A 2 pound package with packaging would be a little over 2 pounds, and so it ends up costing, not including any fulfillment or packaging, just for postage, is like $26 or $27, right?
Mhm.
So that's, if I take it to the store, it costs me $27. Now, if I go to UPS in the store, it's going to cost like $35. Okay, because UPS is more money. So their discount as a frequent shipper with UPS would bring their cost down for UPS probably to like $30, maybe 29 or so, right? So it's just barely over my store USPS cost, right? But you get the
Mhm.
security of UPS and fast, really fast delivery around the world takes generally about 2 to 3 days, maybe 4 days. Um, and so it's only a little bit more expensive. But then with their bulk shipping, for my packages, which were on average 2.3 pounds, they were giving me costs for like England at maybe $21, which
Nice.
is insanely low. Um,
Yeah.
so England, which I use as just kind of it's a middle ground. Like Australia, Japan, would be at the higher end. Like I think
Mhm.
the maximum cost they had on there was like $26 or so, and then the lowest was Canada. I think Canada was going down to like $15 or $16. Um,
Wow.
so it was really low shipping because I happened to do a bunch of packages all at once. So anyway,
Mhm.
apparently it is an option. It's just that we could not get the clearance. I think because we were trying to ship out right when the virus hit, and we just could not get the TSA to give us a clearance code.
Yeah.
So everything was getting delayed. It was just sitting there. The packages were wrapped and ready to go, and we just had to bite the bullet and go with the more expensive shipping option.
Yeah. Well,
So
maybe
that's
for this next
awesome.
one.
Say it again.
I said, well, maybe for this next one.
Yeah, right. And if you happen to be shipping more than that at any given time, then you can look into it as well.
Mhm. I'm definitely going to check out different fulfillment centers and stuff. That sounds great.
Yeah,
I
right,
get a
right.
good amount of orders.
Yeah, and right, because I'm sure if if what I hear, because I haven't really had to do it, because my first campaign, I worked with a fulfillment center, but my understanding, what people were saying is that if you ship more than like 500 orders, that it's just it really just it's just a nasty experience.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So yeah, but I mean, I guess you could get used to it, but why not take advantage of these services?
Yeah, they're really good to know of.
How's your drawing coming along there?
It's good. I actually think I'm going to wrap it up soon for the day.
Yeah, I think we're probably getting pretty close here. What are we at? 1.5 hours. That's a pretty good length. I've got this is my second today, so it's been to where are we now? Yeah, 5.5 hours of streaming today,
Man.
which is quite a bit. But you know what? It's like I'm just doing it while I'm working.
Yeah, you're getting work done and just doing it at the same time. I like this StreamYard.
Yeah. Oh, StreamYard is awesome because it allows you to simultaneously stream on multiple platforms. So I'm broadcasting right now on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And I can also add more. I want to add Periscope for Twitter, but I'm having
Mm.
trouble with my Periscope account. It's pointing to my wrong Twitter account. So I'm trying to fix that. But right now I could have this on Twitter as well live, which would be great. And all the like if I leave a comment, it will show up on all the different platforms as well. Uh,
Oh.
yeah, all in real time. It's super easy to set up. It is to broadcast on multiple platforms. You do have to pay a monthly fee, but it's
Mm.
not too bad. It's like $20 a month, I think, to be able to get it on everything.
Oh yeah, that
I,
seems worth it.
what's that?
Oh, I said that seems worth it.
I think it's worth it, especially if you have a sizable following. Which I mean, you've got a pretty large following on Instagram, as I remember.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes an Instagram following seems like people have much less attention spans on Twitter and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, still, even on Twitter, and I don't know. Does Instagram have? I think there is some sort of there is like a live service on Instagram that you can use, right? I just haven't looked into it.
There is. I've seen people use it, but I have yet to do my own, and it's always in that the iPhone format where it's really tall.
Oh, right. So that wouldn't jive with this, right? Because all these other
Right.
platforms are using 16:9 ratio. Actually, Periscope does a square. I wonder how that works. I wonder if it
Yeah, I feel
crops
like I
it.
could do it for art, but it would be like an awkward chunk of my screen.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, with StreamYard anyway, I love it, and it's super easy. And the best part is you can see how easy it is to invite people.
Yeah.
And it handles, I think, with my along with that simultaneous streaming, I can have up to 10 people on one stream. And everybody can do like screen sharing or they can use their camera and the mic, whatever. And I have been on streams before that have like 6 or 7 people, and
Mm.
it all runs just fine. I think the thing that makes it work so well is that it's browser based. It's taking advantage of their servers. So you don't really have to have a complicated setup on your own, you
Oh
know.
yeah, everybody can pitch in.
Yeah, but we should do more of these because it's a lot of fun to hang out and talk about art. And the more that I do of these, I think over time, if we can get more consistent with them, it would be a lot of fun to have yourself and other artists and people come on and just hang out while we work on things. I call it working alone together.
Yeah, I got you.
So
That would be good.
yeah. So that would be a lot of fun, and we can share what we're working on, and show people all sorts of different things that people are doing. Especially since I know that people who like Dreamside stuff will like what you're doing. So it'd be really great to share that. So actually, you should leave comments so that people know where to find you too.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, should I just do that in this
yeah,
private
just put
chat?
it in the chat, and then I'll also put it in like the YouTube description and stuff.
Okay, I'll put
So,
those in
so
there now.
when people find videos later, they can discover you.
I'm just gonna do my main website because it links to everything else.
Okay, perfect. That's great. Well, cool. Well, what do you say? You want to wrap it up tonight?
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you for
Okay.
having me on here.
Oh, this is a lot of fun, and we had a great chat, and it's I think there are a couple things that you taught me too, which are very will be very useful for me.
Yeah,
And not the least of which is that coloring book stuff. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, let's see when we can get another one of these going on, and I'll be in touch. And what I've been doing with people is just kind of giving them that link, just kind of as an open door. So it's
Mhm.
like you can come and go as you please. As long as there's a stream going on, you're always welcome to jump into it. And so what I've been doing is I'll give people links like in the morning and just say, hey, if you feel like it, jump in.
Awesome.
So then it works with your schedule and your availability. So cool. Well, let's look forward to that. And thanks again for coming. And let's keep in touch.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Okay, Jamaica. All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.